I was wondering to see when it would happen to me as well. I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube where people forget to click record in the camera, so they just start talking for an hour and nothing's been recorded. Well, that happened to me right now. Anyways, let's get through it again. Hi guys. So for this week, I practiced at Barcelona because that's where the races for LFM were gonna happen. And I just want to share how surprised I was when I saw the difference in my driving and my lap times compared to 2 months ago, last time I drove in Barcelona. Even though I didn't practice in this track, I still managed to do like a second faster lap time compared to the beginning, which is crazy to me. Because I didn't really notice all this improvement that was happening slowly over time, but now actually seeing it, I'm pretty happy, and I want to share my results and my progress with you guys. So 2 months ago, I did a lap time of 1:44.5, and now I did a lap time which was a 1:43.7, although it was an invalid lap. A valid lap would be a 1:43.8. But yeah, I just went outside of the track for like a millimeter, and that, invalidated my lap. So I wanted to share that one because it was a pretty decent lap. Theoretically, I did a 1:43.5, but that was, I couldn't really manage to pull out all these sectors together to do that lap time. Anyways, so what I want to do is compare my 2 lap times with you and just go over some things that I noticed that I changed and how I got faster by changing those things. Also, I want to show you my 2 setups that I had. So firstly, here's the setup that I had 2 months ago. It's not a bad setup, but it's a pretty stable setup. So you're gonna encounter a lot of understeer if you're gonna use this setup, but at the time that was what I could handle. When I tried to increase the rake, for example, the car was just too much for me, and I couldn't really manage to balance it out in all these corners, and I just ended up spinning all around the track. That's why here you can see that everything is okay, but also not like the most unstable thing that you could drive. It mostly tends to understeer, really. So now here's the new setup that I made, which is still far from perfect, and I want to go over this in a little bit, but it did manage for me to do to get into the 143 zone, so I'd say that's a big improvement. It's also way more oversteery compared to what I had previously. I also find that to be an improvement. I'm happy to see that I am able to handle a more oversteery car and pull out a way faster lap time as well. So yeah, the biggest difference I would say would be the brake bias and the rake. So in the brake bias, I even went to 50% at some point, but I saw that it was just too much for the tires and they were being overheated, especially the rear left tire, which so yeah, I ended up raising the brake bias a little bit, but it's still lower to what I had in my previous setup. I did have to also make the rear toe positive because again, the rear tires would overheat, and that would cause other issues that wouldn't really help me out when I'm trying to lower my lap times. But the big difference is the rake. So as you can see here, my rake went from 74 that I had previously to an 85, and that's a lot. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's not a lot, but I know that like 2 clicks here are enough to really change the behavior of the car, and I managed to go 11 clicks up, and I'm still not sure if that's enough. I feel like the car is still understeering and I still need to increase the rake even more. But yeah, enough of the setups. You guys can let me know if I'm doing something right or wrong here. Maybe you can suggest a way where I can still keep the amount of rotation that I want and also not overheat the rear tires. But yeah, let's just jump into the laps now. Let's compare and see where I was and where I am right now. So starting off with the 2 months ago lap, I couldn't really find the hot lap that I did, but I did have a bunch of hot laps which weren't the best laps, but all of them are following the same philosophy of how I would drive 2 months ago. So as you can see here, I'm really trying to rotate the car with the steering wheel. Like, I'm steering too much in a lot of these cases. I'm also not maximizing my trail braking, nor am I playing around with the throttle to try to rotate the car throughout these corners. A big part of it had to do with the setup, of course. The setup didn't allow me to do these things, but then again, I didn't have the driving skills to be able to handle the other setup. I did try to make it a more unstable setup, but that would just cost me even more lap time. It wasn't really gaining on anything. So yeah, you can see here in all these corners what I'm doing is I'm braking. I'm not really trail braking, nor am I really trying to reduce my steering, and all this causes this extra oversteer in the exit, where that's the only place where you do not want rotation to happen, in the late exit where you're trying to accelerate but the car is still rotating, so you just almost spin out of the track because of it. That's again mostly due to the understeer that I was experiencing. So I would steer the car too much and I would reach a point where I needed to start accelerating, but I was still steering, so you know, that's where oversteer would kick in, and that's where I would lose a bunch of time because I couldn't straighten the steering wheel. So yeah, the 143 lap time on the other hand, you can see that I'm really delicate with my steering. I'm trying to steer as little as possible. I'm mostly using the brakes, the trail braking and my throttle to balance the car through the corner. And the goal here is, like I mentioned in a lot of my bit videos right now, is to straighten the steering wheel as soon as possible, to just position the car in the best possible place to accelerate as quickly as possible. I'm trying to also carry as much speed as I can, because that's a big part of activating the rotation in the beginning. I feel like if I'm too slow, then you know, the car would just understeer throughout this corner. So maintaining a good amount of speed when you're entering these corners is also crucial. Throughout these things, you can see that I'm also balancing the throttle, but as soon as I know that I need to start accelerating and the car is positioned correctly, I slam on the gas. And nothing happens. You know, I'm able to do that because the car is positioned properly compared to the previous lap where I needed to still steer, but I also needed to accelerate. So steering with full throttle as well, it's not a good idea. The tires can only do so much. With that being said, I do want to note something though. I feel like I need the car to rotate more in corner entry so I can maintain a better rotation throughout the corner, because right now what is happening is I feel like the car starts to rotate in the beginning but not enough, and I end up having understeer in mid-corner even a little bit, you know, and that would cost me a little bit of time because I would have to steer a little bit more mid-corner just to activate that rotation again. So yeah, I feel like there's a gap there where I need to figure out how much more rotation I did on corner entry. I don't know, because I did also try to increase oversteer in corner exit, but that didn't really help. Or maybe it does help, but I just need to adapt to it. You guys can let me know, you know, if you have any suggestions on how I can maintain that rotation throughout this corner. Maybe I'm not trail braking properly, or maybe you know, I need to be more aggressive on throttle in mid-corner or something. I'd be happy if you guys let me know. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm happy to see there's progress in these 2 months, and I'm also pretty curious to see where I'm gonna be 2 months from now. I'm optimistic that there's probably gonna be more improvement, but at the same time, let's just stay focused on improving a little bit every day, and whatever happens, happens. So yeah, the next goal here will be to just race at Barcelona at LFM, just to see how well I can do. That's about it. Thanks everybody who's been supporting me so far. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions that you want me to answer, or you have any suggestions on how I can be faster, or maybe some tweaks in the setup or my driving or anything like that, I'd be happy to know. Let me know in the comments below. And with that said, I'll see you in the next video.